For years, I thought my best friend had my back. Then one day, everyone knew my secret. When I demanded answers, his response made everything so much worse. I don't even know where to start. I feel sick, like my insides have been scooped out and replaced with something cold and hollow. I can't eat. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I hear the whispers, see the looks people give me when they think I'm not paying attention. I feel like I'm drowning. A week ago, I was fine. A week ago, I still had a best friend. A week ago, I still had my secret tucked safely away, wrapped up in trust and the kind of faith you only have in someone you consider your brother in everything but blood. And then, somehow, my worst nightmare became real. It started small. A weird look from a coworker at the office. A sudden, awkward pause in a conversation when I walked past a group of people in the break room. My stomach twisted, but I pushed it down. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But then it kept happening. I noticed people whispering the second I left a room. People who never cared about me suddenly had these sympathetic, knowing eyes. My phone lit up with messages from people who had never texted me before. And worst of all, my best friend, my ride or die, my brother in everything but blood, was acting completely normal. At first, I wanted to believe it wasn't him. I needed to believe it wasn't him. I gave him so many outs, so many chances to tell me what the hell was going on. I'd sit next to him, my heart hammering, waiting for him to say something. But he never did. He just smiled, joked around, acted like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Because the secret that I swore I would take to my grave, the one thing I never wanted anyone to know, now everyone knows. And the person I trusted most in the world is the reason why. I kept telling myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe I had slipped up somehow. Maybe I had said too much in the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe this was just a bizarre coincidence, and people were talking about something else entirely. But deep down, I already knew. I replayed every conversation I'd had with him over the last few months, trying to pinpoint the exact moment I made a mistake. But there was nothing. I had only ever told him. No one else. The weight of it sat in my chest like a stone. I wanted to confront him right away, but I hesitated. I didn't want to believe he could actually do this to me. He had been my best friend for years. The kind of friend who knew my worst moments, who had seen me at my lowest and never judged me for it. But if that was true, then why was my life suddenly unraveling? At work, I could feel the stares. People kept asking me weird, overly personal questions, fishing for something they already knew. And then came the pity. That's what made it real. Not the whispers, not the awkward silences, but the pity. I wanted to scream at them to stop looking at me like that. I tried to act normal, but the walls were closing in. I could feel myself unraveling, piece by piece, trying to keep up the lie that nothing was wrong when everything was wrong. I was drowning in it. And still, he said nothing. That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at my phone, my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I wanted to text him, to demand an explanation, but I was too afraid of what he'd say. Because if I asked, and he admitted it, if he really did this to me, then that meant I had lost him forever. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that. Barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind raced through every possibility, every excuse I could make for him. Maybe someone overheard us talking. Maybe he thought he was being careful but slipped up. Maybe, God, maybe someone hacked his phone or something, and it wasn't even his fault. I was desperate for any explanation that wasn't betrayal. But deep down, I knew. The next morning at work, the tension was unbearable. The stares had turned into something worse. Knowing smiles, hushed murmurs that stopped just as I passed by. I heard my name too many times, in too many voices that had never cared about me before. I clenched my jaw and forced myself to act normal. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me crack. By lunch, I knew I couldn't avoid him any longer. I found him in the break room, leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. My stomach twisted at how normal he looked. Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't set my life on fire. I forced myself to walk up to him, my heart hammering in my chest. Hey! My voice came out strained, barely above a whisper. He looked up and grinned. What's up? I stared at him, my hands clenched into fists. What's up? That was what he had to say? Like nothing had changed? I wanted to punch him. Instead, I forced out the question that had been eating me alive for days. Did you tell anyone? His expression didn't even flicker. Tell anyone what? That was the moment I knew. Not just that he had told, but that he wasn't even sorry. The break room felt smaller, like the walls had inched closer the moment he looked up. There was nothing in his face that hinted at guilt, no flicker of hesitation, just that same easygoing expression, like this was any other day. The silence between them stretched. It wasn't supposed to be this way. There should have been a shift, some sign of regret, or at the very least, discomfort. But he stood there, relaxed, as if the weight crushing down wasn't real. It was real. A question lingered in the air, unspoken yet deafening. The answer was already there, woven into the way he didn't flinch, didn't scramble for an explanation. A person who had nothing to hide would have reacted differently. Someone who hadn't set fire to years of trust wouldn't be this calm. The ground beneath felt unsteady. Everything that had once been certain now cracked beneath the weight of realization. There had been signs, hadn't there? Moments dismissed too quickly, times when something felt off but was brushed aside. The ease with which people started looking, whispering, knowing. It hadn't come from nowhere. It had come from him. Something cold and hollow settled deep in the chest. The conversation should have been simple, a denial at the very least, a flicker of shock that anyone would accuse him of something so cruel. But the moment stretched on, and nothing came. There was no need for a confession. The truth had already been spoken in silence. Turning away felt like the only option. Staying meant acknowledging the full weight of what had been lost, and it was too much to bear. The air felt too thick, the space too tight. Distance was the only way to breathe again. Yet even after walking away, the betrayal clung like something unseen but heavy. A person can leave a room, but they can't leave behind what's already inside them. The walk back to my desk felt unreal, like I wasn't even in my own body. Everything looked the same. People typing away, phones ringing, the smell of burnt coffee in the air. But it wasn't the same. Not for me. I sat down, staring at my screen, but my mind wasn't there. It kept going in circles, trying to process what had just happened. He didn't even try to deny it. He didn't look nervous or guilty. He just stood there like nothing was wrong. I felt stupid. I was stupid. I had trusted him with something I never wanted anyone to know, and he threw it away like it was nothing. The worst part was that I still wanted to believe there was some explanation, some reason that would make this make sense. But there wasn't. I opened my email, trying to distract myself, but my name popped up in a message thread between two coworkers. Not even an attempt to hide it. I clicked it. Do you think it's true? I mean, I didn't believe it at first, but, yeah, it makes sense. My stomach dropped. They weren't even being subtle about it. The whispers weren't in my head. People were actually talking about me. I slammed my laptop shut. If I stayed at my desk any longer, I was going to lose it. The office suddenly felt too loud, too cramped. I grabbed my stuff and walked out, ignoring everything and everyone. I didn't care if my boss got mad. I didn't care if people stared. I just needed to go. The air outside was cold, but it barely registered. My brain was still buzzing with everything I had just seen, everything I now knew for sure. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was public. There was no coming back from this. I got in my car and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tight my fingers started to hurt. My head was pounding. My heart was still racing. I wanted to scream, punch something, do anything to make this feeling go away. Instead, I just sat there, staring at nothing, replaying everything over and over. The worst part wasn't even that people knew. It was how they knew. It was the fact that the one person I trusted most, the person I would have defended with my life, was the reason this was happening. I grabbed my phone and pulled up his name in my contacts. My thumb hovered over the call button, but I couldn't press it. What was I even going to say? What could I say? He wasn't sorry. He didn't even flinch when I asked him about it. I locked my phone and threw it onto the passenger seat. Calling him wouldn't fix anything. He'd just brush it off, maybe even laugh like this was some joke I wasn't in on. I needed answers, but I wasn't going to get them from him. Instead, I opened my work group chat, the same one where people had been talking about me behind my back. My fingers felt numb as I typed. What exactly did he tell you? I sat there, staring at the screen, waiting. A minute passed, then another. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then, finally, a reply. You should probably ask him yourself. My stomach twisted. No denial. No pretending they didn't know what I was talking about. Just that. Then another message popped up. But if you really want to know, he said you trusted him with something big, and he thought it was funny. So he told us. My vision blurred. Not because I was crying. I couldn't cry. I was too angry. Too humiliated. Funny. That's what my trust meant to him. I put my phone down before I threw it across the car. I couldn't sit here anymore. I needed to move, to do something. So I put the car in drive and left. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay here. I drove with no real destination, just turning down streets aimlessly while my brain kept spiraling. Everything felt unreal. A week ago, life was normal. Now, it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me, and I was just free-falling. The words from the chat stuck in my head like an echo. He thought it was funny. It didn't even make sense. None of it did. This was someone I had trusted for years. Someone who had seen me at my lowest, who I had let in when I didn't let anyone in. And he turned it into a joke? I kept trying to make sense of it, but there was no way to make sense of this. I pulled into a random parking lot. Some empty strip mall with a couple of stores that were already closed for the night. I turned off the engine and just sat there, gripping my face in my hands. My head wouldn't stop pounding. My chest was so tight I could barely breathe. There was no fixing this. The secret was out. Everyone knew. There was no rewinding time. No taking back whatever he had said. No pretending like this hadn't just permanently changed everything. And the worst part? I had no idea what people actually thought about it. That was the thing about secrets. You control them until you don't. And once they're out, people twist them. They make assumptions, add their own versions of the truth, turn it into something else entirely. I could already see it. The looks at work weren't just people knowing. They were judging. I swallowed hard, trying to push the thought down, but it wasn't going anywhere. I grabbed my phone again, hesitating for only a second before opening his contact and typing out a message. Why did you do it? No hello. No small talk. Just that. I stared at the screen for a long time before hitting send. Then I locked my phone and tossed it on the dashboard. I didn't expect a real answer. Maybe not even an answer at all. But a part of me, some pathetic, desperate part of me, still hoped for one anyway. I kept my eyes on the screen, waiting for the typing bubble to appear. Nothing. Seconds turned into minutes. The parking lot around me was silent, empty, like the whole world had gone still. I felt stupid for even expecting a response. My fingers drummed against the steering wheel, restless, my whole body tense. Maybe he wasn't answering because he didn't care. Or maybe he was taking his time, figuring out how to spin it, how to make me the bad guy for even asking. I clenched my jaw, exhaling sharply. Staring at my phone wasn't going to change anything. But the longer the silence dragged on, the clearer it became. He wasn't just a bad friend. He enjoyed this. He wanted me to sit with it, to know that he had control over my secret now, not me. A cold realization settled in my chest. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a game to him. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. I had never felt this angry in my life. The phone stayed silent. No message, no explanation, nothing. The longer it dragged on, the worse it felt, like he wasn't just ignoring me, but choosing to. Like I wasn't even worth the effort of a response. I unlocked my screen, staring at the message I sent. I could delete it, pretend I never asked. But that wouldn't change anything. He still did it. He still sold me out, and now he didn't even have the decency to face me about it. A sharp, bitter laugh slipped out before I could stop it. How had I been so blind? I had spent years believing this guy had my back, trusting him more than anyone. Now, I was just another joke to him. The sick thing was, I kept expecting something. An apology, some pathetic excuse, anything that would make this feel less cruel. But nothing came. I should have been done. I should have blocked his number and let this be the end of it. But I wasn't built like that. I needed to know. I needed to hear him say it. Before I could stop myself, I grabbed my phone again and typed. At least be a man about it. Tell me to my face. I hit send, tossing my phone onto the passenger seat like I couldn't stand to hold it any longer. This time, the response came almost immediately. Chill, man. It's not that deep. Not that deep. Everything inside me went still. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something colder, sharper. Something that made my hands stop shaking and my breathing slow. Not that deep. He had thrown away years of trust, ripped my life open for fun, and that was all he had to say? I gripped the steering wheel, staring at the message, reading it over and over. He wasn't just unapologetic. He didn't care. I wasn't a person to him. I was entertainment. Another message popped up. You're overreacting, bro. People were gonna find out eventually. Better to just get it out there, right? Something inside me snapped. Better for who? I fired back, my fingers pressing into the screen so hard it hurt. The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared. Then nothing. He had nothing to say because there was nothing to say. He'd already made it clear. He didn't regret it, he didn't feel bad, and he never would. The The realization settled like a rock in my stomach. This wasn't just betrayal. This was mockery. I sat there, staring at the words, knowing that whatever friendship we had was officially dead. I should have stopped, put the phone down, let it go, moved on. But I couldn't. My hands were clenched so tight my knuckles ached, my breathing shallow and sharp. I wanted to drive to his place, drag him outside, and demand to hear him say it to my face. But what would that do? He'd just shrug, maybe smirk, and act like I was the crazy one for taking this so seriously. Like it wasn't my entire life he had just screwed up. The streetlights outside cast a dull glow over the dashboard. My phone sat on the passenger seat, the last message still sitting there, staring at me. Better to just get it out there, right? I could almost hear his voice, casual, dismissive, like this was just some favor he had done for me. Like I should be grateful. Another wave of rage built in my chest, and I grabbed my phone again, my fingers moving before I could stop them. You think this is funny? A few seconds passed. Then, another response. Dude, why are you so mad? I didn't think you'd freak out like this. I figured you were cool with it. Cool with it. I let out a short, humorless laugh, gripping the phone so tight I thought it might crack. That was it. That was all I needed to know. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't even aware of what he had done because he had never actually respected me in the first place. I had been a joke to him this entire time. The past few years of friendship, all those deep talks, all those moments where I thought I could count on him. Worthless. It had never been what I thought it was. And that realization hit harder than the betrayal itself. I exhaled slowly, fingers shaking as I typed one last message. Lose my number. No explanation. No more questions. Just that. I hit send, then blocked his number before he could respond. For a second, I just sat there, my hands still shaking, my heart hammering against my ribs. It didn't feel satisfying. It didn't make anything better. But at least I wasn't letting him take up space in my life anymore. I put the car in drive and pulled out of the parking lot. I didn't know where I was going, but wherever it was, it would be away from him. The drive home felt like it lasted forever. Every red light, every turn, every moment alone in the car stretched time into something unbearable. There was no escaping my thoughts, no drowning them out with music or distractions. The weight of everything sat in my chest like a stone. I should have felt relief. Blocking his number, leaving that toxic group chat, walking away. It should have given me some kind of closure. But it didn't. If anything, the silence made it worse. No explanation. No regret. No attempt to fix what he had broken. Because he didn't care. That was the part that hurt the most. Not just the betrayal, but the way he acted like it was nothing. Like I had been nothing. Like I was just some joke that had finally reached its punchline. I gripped the steering wheel harder, trying to force the thoughts away, but they wouldn't stop. Had it always been this way? Had I been fooling myself this entire time, thinking I had a best friend when really, I was just something for him to laugh at when I wasn't around? I thought back to all the times I had trusted him, confided in him, leaned on him when I had no one else. Every deep conversation, every late-night talk where I thought I was safe. Had he ever actually cared? The more I thought about it, the more moments started to stand out. Times when I had told him things in confidence and later, caught other people mentioning them in passing. I had brushed it off, convinced myself I was being paranoid. But maybe this wasn't the first time. Maybe this was just the time I actually caught him. A sick feeling settled in my stomach. I pulled into my driveway and killed the engine, but I didn't move. The house was dark, quiet. Too quiet. It didn't feel like home anymore. It just felt like another place where I'd be alone with my thoughts. My phone was still sitting on the passenger seat, dark and silent. No messages. No missed calls. I hadn't expected him to reach out. Not really. But some small, stupid part of me had still hoped that maybe, just maybe, he'd realize what he had done and try to fix it. But no. The person I thought I knew was gone. I picked up my phone and opened the work group chat again. My name was still sitting there in messages that weren't meant for me to see. Conversations that had probably started the second my secret got out. I stared at it for a long time before scrolling to the top and hitting leave group. A notification popped up. You have left the chat. It wouldn't fix anything, but it was something. A small way of reclaiming even the tiniest bit of control over my life. I got out of the car, the night air hitting me like a slap. Everything felt different now, like I had stepped into some alternate version of my life. One where I was suddenly a stranger in my own world. I locked the car and pocketed my phone, heading toward the door. Tomorrow, I'd deal with work. The whispers. The judgment. Tomorrow, I'd figure out what the hell came next. But tonight, I just needed to breathe. The house was dark when I stepped inside. The silence stretched around me, thick and suffocating. Normally, I turn on the TV or scroll through my phone, anything to fill the quiet, but not tonight. I just stood there, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of everything settle onto my shoulders. This was it, the moment it fully sank in. I had lost my best friend. Not just lost, been betrayed by. And now, there was no going back. No fixing it, no undoing it. Even if he magically decided to apologize tomorrow, even if he somehow realized how badly he had screwed up, it wouldn't matter. Because I would never trust him again. The anger still lingered, burning low like a dying fire, but exhaustion was taking over now. I had spent so much energy trying to process it, trying to make sense of something that would never make sense. I dropped my keys onto the counter and sat down at the kitchen table, my head resting in my hands. Maybe in a way, this was a good thing. A clean break. A lesson learned. I had spent years thinking I had someone in my corner, someone I could rely on. Now, I knew the truth. And maybe it was better to find out now, before I trusted him with something even bigger. But that didn't make it hurt any less. I reached for my phone, staring at the blocked contact list. His name was there, sitting at the top, a reminder of what I had lost. For a split second, I almost unblocked him, just to see if he had tried to say anything. But I didn't. I locked my phone and set it aside. He wasn't worth another second of my time. Tomorrow would be hell. I'd still have to face work, still have to deal with the aftermath of what he had done. But I'd get through it. I had to. And next time, because there would be a next time, I'd be smarter about who I let in. I took a deep breath, letting the exhaustion finally take over. It wasn't the ending I wanted, but at least it was over.